Hey everyone, welcome to the first session of our series of Haven, Buried Sins, hosted here on the Gauntlet. I'm Stephen, I'm the facilitator for this run. Uh, Haven is a for those who are interested, a belonging outside belonging role-playing game created by CM, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Ruebsaat, which you can find in a link below over on their itch.io page. Haven is a game in which we are playing the members of a community of witches that have established a secret haven away from the outside world to protect our members from the violence that is often born against our kind. It is, as I said, based off the Belonging Outside Belonging system created by Avery Alder, and in her game Dream Askew. It is a GM-less game, so as I said, I am just the facilitator here. And this is a game, as I said before, hosted on the Gauntlet. The Gauntlet, for those who do not know, is a sort of online club that, besides publishing a monthly zine for members, as well and hosting several podcasts on indie role-playing games, also has a calendar, which you can find in the link below, where people can post and sign up for various games hosted every month, usually of the indie or OSR variety. Feel free, come join us, come play with us. I can attest that all of the other people here are amazing people to play with. Even if there is a surfeit of Davids, as we are suffering from right now, we need other names. Surfeit of Davids and Stevens, let's be fair. I also have to admit that. So yeah, let's just go quick round of introductions for the camera. If we go clockwise for me, Ryan. And if you have anything you want to plug, feel free.
My name is Ryan. I use he, him pronouns. I guess I'll plug the same thing I've been plugging on Gauntlet Games the last couple weeks. So the North American Simulation and Gaming Association will be having their annual conference in October. It will be online this year. So if you're interested, I'll be running for 2 weeks. They're going to stretch it out at the end of October. If you want more information, you can check out their website at nasaga.org. And I will be presenting a talk there on my use of role-playing games to teach philosophy in the classroom.
Cool. And then David sans punctuation.
Hi, my name's David. I use he, him pronouns. I don't have anything particular to plug at the moment, but
besides all the things you make.
I mean, my creative outputs are very much limited to Codex at the minute. So if you do check out the link to there, you will find some stuff in there by me. So do enjoy if you pick up any of that stuff. But yeah. I'm really looking forward to this. I've not played a lot of Belonging Outside Belonging, as I was just saying, and it's always good to get a bit more under the belt. And this sounds like an interesting take on it. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and then David S.
Hi, folks. Name's David. He, him pronouns here. I don't have anything in particular to plug right now, but I have a little bit of experience with this kind of system, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this goes. I think the concept is really, really cool, so I think it'll be a good one.
Cool. So we're going to be looking over here. Let me share my screen here. So I've set up in our Google Drawings, in that Drive folder I sent out to everyone, a Google Drawings page that is for our Haven. And for the setup of the game, we start with working together on the Haven play sheet, which is, if you go to the PDF, the third page there down. So for the Haven,
Did we lose Stephen?
I think so. Yeah, it's looking frozen on my screen.
Okay. At least it doesn't kick us all out when the host is frozen.
Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully he'll be back.
Give it a minute.
Yeah. Did you all settle on playbooks that you were looking to play?
There's a few that I could see myself doing. I think I'm gravitating towards the eldest at this point, but there's plenty that I could make it work.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe either the Rose or the Unburned. Both are quite interesting. Well, I mean they're all interesting, but yeah, those were the two that were calling out to me.
I think Stephen mentioned in one of the emails that he was going to add Sawyer's to playbooks as well.
Yeah, I think they are in there now. I think that's the is it the Mediator and the Neophyte?
Right.
I think I remember Sawyer's ones. Yeah.
All right. Hey there. Sorry about that. My laptop decided to just not connect to the internet anymore, so I'm here on my regular computer. Honestly, the only reason I use the laptop, even though, is because it's the only computer I have that has a camera. But right, cool. So where we left off, we were just about to discuss that Haven. The Haven sheet is basically where we flesh out a little bit of our world to give us some context for making our characters. So I wanted to kind of go around, handing off a little bit to the rest of you since I'm facilitating here. First off, let's go with the aesthetics. Do any of them stand out to people as parts of our haven or the world surrounding it that seem interesting to folks?
I quite like the idea of mossy grottos, just like little caves with sort of moss growing around them, lots of stones, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I like just kind of against that like, what if, because I'm kind of imagining those sort of old and this is just kind of me living in LA, and because there's this one sector where there used to be a city until it basically just started sinking into the ocean because it was built on unstable land. And so I kind of like the idea that there's this kind of half submerged like industrial sector that like lies just out a little ways off the shore, and that like we can still see the buildings poking up through the water.
So we're in a coastal region. Is that safe to say then?
Yeah, like I think if you're interested in the idea of the grottos, I like that, if that's cool with you.
I, for my part, like the idea of, as long as we're doing this grotto kind of thing, our haven being somewhat embedded in a forest of some sort. The twisted trees aesthetic was appealing to me. The question that I have is whether we want it to be like a deciduous forest or something that's more coniferous, so kind of like the pine evergreen sort of vibe versus, burning orange leaves in the autumn, no leaves at all in the winter, that kind of aesthetic.
Yeah, I guess for me the idea of twisted trees definitely conjures more of a sort of deciduous tree look, and also cool color changing. But I'm also happy with a sort of coniferous forest.
That's fine by me. I like the idea of having these kind of mossy grottos that are subterranean and perpetually damp, and there's always this thin layer of crushed and rotting leaves kind of underfoot. I think that's kind of a neat vibe.
Yeah, and I'm just anyone else feel free to also just draw. I'm just kind of sketching out some of these thoughts. Do any of these other things stand out to you, Ryan?
I was trying to think, given what we've already said. I mean, the very first one was jumping out at me to begin with, the underground tunnels. And I'm now thinking, like, if we're doing this, on the one hand, we have these natural sort of grottos, and on the other hand, this collapsed industrial buildings. Maybe some of these tunnels are kind of natural, leading from the grottos, but maybe we also have some, I don't know, I guess there wouldn't be a sewer system if our city collapsed into the sea, but I was thinking that maybe some of these tunnels weren't natural. So we just kind of have this not really a network, but just these various tunnels maybe out. Maybe we haven't even found them all, but there's some that are natural and some that were man-made.
Right.
Have the tunnels been explored? And if so, do they lead anywhere noteworthy?
Oh.
I mean, are we just going full post-apocalyptic witches here, and there's like some ruined city? Because the setting does leave a bit vague what time period this is set in. Because this could be medieval era, but it could also be completely modern.
I definitely had in mind a more modern setting, unless somebody just really wanted to play like a medieval witches thing or a colonial era witches or whatever.
Modern is fine by me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess I had sort of pictured more of a colonial era thing, but that's just because that's where my head goes when it comes to witches. And no, modern is absolutely fine by me. I'd maybe, I guess, want to avoid like full on post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely kind of an old abandoned town or bit of a town or whatever is cool.
I think that actually that's something worth mentioning is kind of how close to sort of a large throng of civilization are we? Is this like a really remote area where we're surrounded by...
We are always to some degree near to the village, because the village is always a presence in the game. And so it's not necessarily a large community, but it is a community that is there and is large enough to threaten us.
Got it. That makes sense.
But I do kind of get the impression, at least, of that this is perhaps almost like a kind of... like I'm kind of imagining like the mining town that kind of increasingly has been shifting over to lumber as its mines have fallen off in output.
So there's the possibility that they might be encroaching on our haven as a consequence. Okay. I quite like that. So if it's largely mining, lumber, that kind of thing, are we thinking kind of a like a northwestern part of North America kind of setting, with a lot of kind of working class, kind of blue collar individuals in this town, like that kind of demographic?
That makes sense to me. Does that work for the rest of you?
Yeah, sure thing.
Sure.
Cool. And I guess one of the question I wanted to ask is where in the map is, because we have the forest, the sea grottos, the remains of the factory district sunken, and this set of old mining tunnels that intersect with the sea grottos and perhaps get regularly flooded as a result. Where do you think our haven is located?
The options being kind of like within the grottos, in the forest,
Maybe even
in the tunnels.
having set up amongst the half-sunken remains of the factory district.
That could be interesting.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea that maybe we've moved into this abandoned like factory district, and kind of leaving the woods and the grottos and all of that as kind of places where trouble might arise that we're going to, or places we might go to, I don't know, if we do rituals or anything like that.
Cool.
So the haven proper is going to be in the remains of the factory district. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
That sounds good to me.
Yes. Auto. Do we think we have a name for our haven, or is it just the haven?
Imagine there being, and I don't have anything like on the tip of my tongue, but like some sort of nickname for this industrial area.
The Rust.
That could work. I like that.
Cool. And just to kind of have it there also as a thing, what do we think is the name of this town that is nearby?
I don't know why, but Coopersville just like for some reason popped into my head. I don't know if that
Cool.
works for people, but
That works for me.
Yeah, I was thinking something where it's got like the old timey founder's name in it. So Coopersville is real good, I think.
Let's kind of shrink that down so it's less. Cool. And then, so I think that this kind of helps flesh out. I'm also wondering, do we go into the sea grottos for any reason? Is there something of like mystical interest there? Or is it like a hiding place off that used to be used for like smugglers back in like the 19th century?
I quite like the idea of there being some mystical significance to them, but I also quite like the idea of them also being somewhere that was used by smugglers or what have you.
Cool. We'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
why not both?
Exactly, exactly.
Cool. So this brings us to bringing up 3 to 5 concerns. And if we again like look through this list here, again, I kind of want to throw this out to other people first and kind of help facilitate us through this before picking something myself. But do any of these seem really interesting to folks? And these are things that, unlike aesthetics in which we're kind of fleshing out what our world looks like, this is sort of giving us some ins to this world of ways we might portray it causing problems for us, or things that our characters might be concerned with trying to fix. So they include things like hunters from the village, but also more mystical things like rising amounts of ghosts and demonic incursion. But also things that ask us about the town, our own haven's futurity, like a new generation needing teaching, or a lack of children among our haven.
I vaguely, maybe not as the primary focus of the game, but I kind of like the idea of this new generation needing teaching. I like the idea of potentially having people from the village who or at least one of us, maybe other members of the community might disagree, and so there's conflict there, but perhaps at least one of us feels that we need to bring more into the fold. And that could be a point of conflict or interest that way.
Yeah.
And part of that is coming to mind because of the playbook that I'm interested in, and I'm kind of trying to look for things that they might be interested in doing, but that's just one thing that comes to mind that I think could be compelling.
I forget what, yeah, we'll get into that. Which playbook are you interested in?
The Eldest.
Right, cool. I like that thought. I'm just kind of wondering, like, what do you think we've converted into the schoolhouse for our community? Because we are in these, like, ruins, and I'm just kind of curious, like, what that is. Like, have we like, just like, moved into, like, that kind of raised foreman's office? Like, it's still, like, there on the stilts over the water?
I quite like the idea of, the big cooling towers that they have. I assume they have similar in the US, but certainly the ones we used to have up here, where they're those big, slightly raised off of the ground, and then like big concrete, like not quite a triangle shape, but sort of curving up and into a hole. And I like the idea of like having set them up to almost be like an auditorium, because you've got that kind of big round structure to it.
Yeah. Cool. But yeah, what about David or Ryan? Do any of those call out to you?
It feels like to me that if we have a new generation that needs teaching, that perhaps part of the problem here is that our head witch is missing. So it's not only that we have a generation that needs teaching, but we also are absent a teacher.
How did they go missing?
I want to say they just, like, for some reason, old age is like the first thing that comes to mind, but that doesn't. I feel like we need something that might invite a bit more conflict with the outside than that. But I don't know.
I mean, that certainly is interesting. Like, did we have to, because we don't really have medical services here, did we have to like send them to an actual hospital for like something that our magic couldn't fix, and they just happened and they just like disappeared during that convoy we sent out with them? Because this is kind of one of those problems that like little communities experience. Like, we have to rely on these outside services for things.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I was wondering if because I was actually been thinking of that one, because I think it's often an interesting one to get things started with. But yeah, I'm also wondering if maybe it's literally just that one morning they weren't there anymore, and no one's entirely sure what happened to them. But also, yeah, I quite like the idea of that, like them having gone out into the world and we're not sure where they are now. I think either could work.
Yeah. Let me just add to our little village, Coopersville Memorial Hospital. Cool. Yeah. And I do like just to play into some of the history we've been hinting at with this town of bringing in the rising amount of ghosts and just kind of adding in let's see, let me make that smaller. The haunted sea grottos. That the ghosts of miners past, as well as the smugglers who were executed here by the local authorities in the 19th century, their ghosts have been stirred up recently and have been spreading out of the grottos rather than staying put like ghosts should. Ghosts should stay put, haunt their little spaces, and then they don't cause problems for the rest of us. So I think I do kind of like, if people are okay with that, also adding in that concern of the rising amounts of ghosts. And let's see, I think, David, yeah, did you have any of the others stand out to you?
I am wondering about.
And of course, this
I'm
list
wondering
isn't
about maybe-
comprehensive, or yeah, and
Yeah.
entries can be changed to fit something else if we want as well. So, but yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
David. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I'm wondering about maybe. Yeah, I was again torn between demonic incursions and things from the woods. I think I'm going to go with things from the woods because it's a bit more open, and maybe it is a demonic incursion, maybe it's something else.
Yeah. I like
and
it. Oh, go ahead.
Yep. No, and yeah, just I think maybe nothing super concrete at the minute. Just there have been odd things happening in the woods.
Yeah, and I like the idea that there's some lumber camp where the workers have disappeared. Like they just came to the camp and just no one was there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those sort of suddenly deserted, places, sort of, Mary Celeste type things. And also, if those are things that are also targeting the people from the village, it's a good thing for us to be blamed for, as well as trying to work out what's actually going on.
Awesome, yeah. Well, I'll just stop sharing the screen for now, since we don't, since that kind of brings us to the end of this particular little bit. Unless there's anything else that people wanted to add on to the map in terms of notes or questions people had, if they wanted to have any more questions about the world that might be interesting, that are interesting to them, and that we don't want to say, that we want to resolve before entering into play. Because some questions we can just resolve in play. But cool, if everyone's good with that. Kind of following through on the setup, I want to have people turn over to setting elements. Setting elements are the parts of the game that, because this is a GM-ful game, there is no single game master running things. Instead, any of us at any given time might be asked to pick up and play as a setting element in order to provide color, antagonism, or to help flesh out the world by playing NPCs. Each of these setting elements, if we kind of here, I'll drag this over to kind of show to folks, is composed of a collection of things to kind of go into. They have a set of prompts for when you should have someone pick up a setting element, when you should trade away a setting element. Often it's when you yourself are planning on coming into or interacting with it in some way, so that you're not just playing both your character as well as the world around them. A set of tips, which are not hard rules for playing the setting, but are instead extra little kind of advice on how to play towards the setting element in an interesting way. And then finally, a set of moves. The moves are things that you're setting that are associated with your setting element. And when basically people are looking to you and asking for what happens next, that is this is a list of things to fall back on. Besides the setting elements themselves, each of them also has a thing that when you're holding the setting element, you should also pay attention to. For the most part, these are things less important than the setting element, but there are good moments to bring focus in. Like each has a set of questions associated with it that are kind of useful prompts to help flesh out the world. So, for example, the Whims of Magic has spells and rituals attached to it, in which has the questions: when someone casts a spell, ask what desires of magic are you fulfilling, and when someone performs a ritual, ask how will this change things. So they're ways of helping us direct play a bit, even without a GM here at the table. So if we kind of wanted to do a quick intro of the setting elements, I kind of wanted to go around and just kind of introduce them to folks for people who are missing. So kind of following me and going down on the list so it'd be Stephen, Ryan, David S. If we could kind of each take a turn, read it, like introducing the setting element with that little prompt that comes with it. I should note, besides the base setting elements, I also have here 2 elements that were created by Ferret with Ferret Hine Games here on the Gauntlet, the World's Heart and the Modern Void. I think with the setting we've built, where we're playing in a very modern world, the Modern Void works very well here. So I was going to bring that up, but if we wanted to play with those after we introduce them. But so I'll start with the Whims of Magic. Magic is alive, a strange, dark thing of great power and eldritch desires. It changes our world in ways we cannot even imagine. And so, Ryan, if you could take the Dark Forest.
Yeah, so the Dark Forest. Hear the forest dark and deep. These are the woods where all manner of beasts and spirits roam. They lie in the outskirts of Haven, ever present.
Buried sins and secrets. The world is strange and mysterious, and the secrets of the place run deeper than anywhere else. The past is hidden, but for how long?
The Witches of Haven. These are our people, your people. They've provided a place you can be yourself, be free, be safe. This is our haven.
Cool. And then the Village Beyond. Watch for the people, the normal ones that don't allow us in as they steadily encroach upon our forest. Can they join us? And then Ryan, if you could take the next.
Would these be the additional ones?
I
from
wanted to
Ferris?
introduce them, and
Sure. I don't have, so I must have an older link because play kit I have ends
if you this is not in the play kit, it's actually in the, if you look at actually the shared screen, it's right there in the spreadsheet.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Okay, so the world's heart. Every soul is unique and bound at the very basis of what we are. To be aware of community is key. To offer succor is divine.
And finally, The Modern Void. Jack in, turn on, transcend. Download a tome in torrent cannibalization. Psych up, dude.
Yeah. So first off, I did want to kind of bring up that the World's Heart and the Modern Void, of course, are not part of the base game. I'm interested in trying to run with them. They don't encroach upon like the main game too much, but they do sort of add in specific themes. Like the Modern Void makes the world outside a bit more of an issue than just the Village Beyond, because in some sense, the Village Beyond is about this community. The Modern Void is in some sense the kind of encroachment of progress and change, sometimes destructive, but sometimes beneficial. The World's Heart is primarily about bringing some stress and it's primarily in some sense about like when we actually want to bring people into the community and also do honor to lives that are lost. It offers a bit more consequence to death in the world. And it also offers a little bit more consequence to the community. It kind of blurs that line between the town, the village, and the haven. Because in this one, it is explicitly about having outsiders come in and offer other viewpoints to the ones necessarily offered by the haven. So are people kind of interested in having these in the game, or would you rather run with kind of just the base set?
I'm cool with having them there. I mean, if these things come up, we can pick them up, and if they don't, we won't.
Yeah, I'm of a similar mind. Yep.
Yeah, cool. Is it fine with you, David S? Because I do kind of want actual sort of consent from everyone to do this, rather than having one player who's really unhappy with it.
No, that actually sounds fine. As a matter of fact, looking at World's Hearts, I mean that some of the moves in World's Hearts do line up with that theme of bringing new people into the fold that need guidance. There's a lot of stuff you can pull from with World's Heart there, so I think that works.
Yeah, and so for each of these setting elements, we take a look and assign them some desires. So the first we have is the Whims of Magic, which represents the power that magic wields within the power which represents the actual use of magic. That magic in this game is not just something we use and draw upon. It's a force that has desires and wants of its own. And I should note, desires in setting elements are a bit like the desires in fronts of Apocalypse World. They are not necessarily things that someone in the element consciously wants, but when we're playing as the element, they're things that that we want to push the fiction towards when we're playing as that element. So if you look, for example, at things that the Whims of Magic wants, it might be sacrifice, a way in, the village's fall, or pomp and ceremony. So like, do any of those desires stand out as ones that we want to bring in for the Whims of Magic? I mean, I personally like, perhaps with what we've set up, I like the idea that perhaps there is some kind of attempt, like either an attempt at balance or just an attempt at complete imbalance and like wanting the village to die. Like I feel like one or the other is like kind of what I'm drawn to with the setting we've set up for like what magic wants in this world.
So basically, the question of whether or not we can coexist with the force of progress that's encroaching on our kind of natural. I gotcha.
I mean, on the one hand, I'm kind of drawn to just is it the end of the village? Is that the one?
The village's fall.
Village's fall, yeah. But so I mean, would it be totally unplayable to have a setting element that had conflicting desires?
No. Setting elements, just like people, can be hypocritical and self-contradictory.
So if balance and the village's fall were desires, or is that just like too much?
I mean, it could be. It's up to us then to also interpret maybe what that means. Like, does balance necessarily mean like a balance between us and the village? Or does magic believe, or does the force of magic at least believe that the village has to be destroyed? Like the village is contradictory to balance, perhaps.
Or maybe we could just leave it at balance.
Yeah.
And just leave it open like that. Like maybe
sure.
Some people read it one way, some people read it the other. We just don't know.
Like, because it also, like, balance also to a degree has this connotation of vengeance to it. That is that vengeance is a certain kind of balance, not a great one, but a balance.
Restoring things to where they should be.
I also like perhaps. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say sacrifice maybe, because I always like magic with sacrifice, and again, I feel like that plays into balance quite nicely because you have to, give up something to get something.
Cool. So we have the village's fall, balance, and sacrifice, which makes magic seem like a wonderful career choice.
For my part, I was just thinking that a middle ground that I could see perhaps my character turning to kind of synthesize this dialectic of the village must fall, but there must also be balance. Is perhaps we don't view the village as something that must necessarily be destroyed because we just think it's fine, we'll just dominate it. By all means, come closer to us. We will basically entrap you, ensnare you, and this will be the way that we deal with you. You don't need to be destroyed necessarily. You will just become, one more of our playthings. That sort of approach.
Already.
I'm not sure I like our community.
We'll see. Maybe that's just David as his character.
Yeah, but maybe dominate is too strong of a word. Perhaps mastery of the village is a more positive spin on it.
Yeah, there are no negative connotations to master. But yeah, and we continue on to the dark forest, where that the forest represents the kind of natural world that is untamable and but also that is perhaps dangerous, but also perhaps valuable and useful. It certainly protects us to a degree that it separates us from the village, but it is not always a thing that can be trusted. So of these, like, it includes things like reclamation of worked things, silence to protect, but also things like to hunt and to scatter from the sun and to keep secrets hidden. Do any of these like stand out as stuff that they like about the dark forest? Because this is a twisted wood. I do sort of like the idea that, considering what we've set up, that one of its desires is to hunt or to keep secrets hidden. Does to hunt work?
I was thinking.
Yeah, I was thinking.
Because
I was thinking feed, but that feels very similar to hunt. So yeah.
I was actually going to say I liked hunt over feed because hunt kind of sounds like it could be like there could be other reasons for why you're being hunted than to be fed on, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of like rolls feed into it, but keeps it open for other things too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The other one I quite like, and to sort of contrast with that, is to show its beauty.
A certain definition of beauty.
Yeah. So that like stark, wild beauty sort of thing.
Right. And I do like with some of the stuff we've set up, but it also wants the reclamation of worked things. Like I like that idea that that like the sort of floating forest is sort of slowly overtaking the factory we're in. Does that work for folks? Cool. And then we have buried sins and secrets. The buried sins and secrets are primarily about when we're traveling into places looking for truth. They can represent old books, ruined places, sites of past violence. That's the kind of stuff that that buried sins and secrets deal with, and desires can include things like to be found, dramatic irony, or to create rifts, for example. But this is really about like the sins usually want to be found in some one way or another, because ultimately when they are uncovered, it's never entirely a good thing.
I really want to get dramatic irony in there.
Yes, I know. When dramatic irony is an option, how do you not pick it? Do any of the others stand out to folks?
I mean, I don't know if we so to be found I think has to be picked, but I don't know if we want to use that because of course any secret we introduce is going to be found. Do we want to make that a desire, or are we just going to play it that way?
I mean, yeah, I'd say that there are other ways that you could play it as not necessarily being found, because of course paranoia and worship in some sense don't necessarily create like to be found for me implies that the truth must come out, whereas some of the others are about like the truth instead festers and like warps the community from within.
I gotcha. Well, maybe we don't pick to be found then, unless somebody else really wants it.
I don't mind skipping over it.
I like the idea that to kind of bring in some of this other stuff, that either one or the other or both of worship and horror, because there does seem to be mystical forces in our world that I'm kind of interested in uncovering, and I feel like worship and horror pushes us towards that.
I like that. The only other contribution I was thinking is potentially is creating rifts, on the basis that there seems to be a division between ourselves and the village that is going to be an emerging theme. There seem to be some uppity ghosts that we might need to separate ourselves from, and so a rift between those.
I like the idea.
worlds.
Then perhaps do we want to go with horror and to create rifts?
I think that could work. I think worship might emerge organically without needing to necessarily be defined as a desire. Well, or of course it doesn't.
I'm fine
necessarily,
pushing towards worship then. I was kind of on the fence about the other, if people are cool with worship.
I think between the two, horror is more likely to emerge organically than worship. If we already have a lot of ghosts and this encroaching village, I think the odds that horrific things will emerge.
And we already have certainly some horrific built into the dark forest. Like I feel like we've kind of fleshed that out as something dark and dangerous. Perhaps going with worship creates a better contrast in buried sins and secrets. And then we come to the Witches of Haven, which is basically about portraying the kind of internal politics of the community, showing our needs and conflicts from within the group. Why is this? Huh, weird. But yeah, desires include things like power, peace, bloodshed, love, junk, acceptance. A lot of this is about things that the community needs in one way or another, or that it wants.
Can we have festivities?
I mean, yeah, I'm cool with that. I'm always up for a party.
Creepy witch parties.
Yeah. Cool.
I feel like probably a take on children, not in the creepy Baba Yaga style, but more in the fact that because we've already set up that we are expressly trying to get new recruits essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess we could but I'm happy to just go with children, but yeah.
Yeah,
we're not setting up a gingerbread house.
Yeah, we've certainly set up an important kind of narrative point that is like we are about training this generation of children to like continue the ways of magic after us. That we're interested sort of in futurity. As to the other thing it wants, just kind of, does anybody have like a thing they're drawn to for the third? I'm interested maybe in traditions, because that is a conflict we've been setting up. And this conflict between children, like wanting futurity, but also wanting to hold to the past, feels like something we've been pushing towards. Does that work for folks? Cool. And then the Village Beyond is really about the front we'll bring in for interacting with the world beyond the Haven. This usually will mean the characters that are like quote unquote the normal society. They are the people that do not accept the witches and the ways of magic and who we have chosen to separate ourselves from. They might be people we go to because they have access to resources and skills that a small community like ours doesn't have. They might also be people that are friendly to us or people that are totally hostile to us. The village, just like the Haven, is composed of a lot of different kinds of people. And they have desires ranging from things that are, we might read as sort of positive, like independence or respect. But they also have things, I mean, respect can be read both ways, because respect, of course, what does it mean to be respected? It's making me think of this thing that that honor is the thing produced by removing respect from the slave, which is why like all these slaveholding societies are obsessed with honor, because they have like excess honor, like that they like claim from. Sorry. um. But yeah, so we have things like independence, but also kind of things like involving resources like land, lumber, meat. And the town itself is also interested in its own futurity. So it's also interested in things like legacy, to build, rulership, tradition. So in some ways, there are crossovers between the town and the Haven that might be interesting to play upon. Like, I'm actually interested in the idea of giving, what if the town also had tradition as its want?
I was thinking that too, and wondering if and maybe this is something we would play to find out, but like if we're talking about the same traditions, just like different understandings of them.
Like that's something I was also thinking about.
Yeah.
Do any of the other desires, like I think that we've kind of been talking about that certainly one of the things they want is lumber. And I'm wondering, even just to again play on its connections to the Haven, like, because a lot of the town we've set up is about them trying to find a way of like not just dying out as a town as all the work flows away from them, is maybe legacy. Like, this isn't a town that is like a danger to us because they're trying to expand. They're a danger to us just because they're also trying to survive, and their survival isn't necessarily compatible with our own.
I like that a lot, actually, because it perfectly parallels what we're doing. They're expanding into our territory to ensure their own continued existence, and at the same time, we're apparently expanding into their territory to ensure our own continued existence.
And then the world's heart, as I said before, is primarily a setting element that's concerned with like sort of dealing with the boundary spaces between the village and the haven, between life and death. It's about the ways in which things. It's about exploring the ways in which things are interconnected, but which ways in which things are interconnected. So its desires include things like succor, empathy, but also things like taboos, sacrifice. It's in some sense about like looking at the ways that things are connected together, or it's a lot of its desires. Do any of those stand out to folks as things that the world's heart might want?
I quite like empathy in there as one, as kind of a counterpoint to a lot of the, or not counterpoint necessarily, but as a yeah, I'm going to say counterpoint again to like the kind of a lot of the conflict we've had set up.
And I do like, as a contrast to some of the stuff we've set up about magic, that perhaps the world's heart, rather than sacrifice, wants offerings and reparations.
Yeah, so sort of stuff given freely rather than stuff given as a price.
Yeah. And do any of those other ones stand out, like a third for our third desire?
I don't know why. I'm not like terribly tied to it, but pacifism for some reason jumps out as something that might.
Yeah, I like that. And then again, it sets up a nice contrast to some of the more violence of some of the other setting elements as well.
I like that.
So yeah, I have to say, Ferret, I do like the world's heart. It creates a nice, like a lot of its desires, as I'm sure you intended, create a nice contrast to like what's already there, and helps expand in a useful way. In case you are listening to this, Ferret. But yeah. And then finally, we have the Modern Void. The Modern Void, unlike the Village, which is sort of concerned with a single community, is sort of more interested in those structures of change and technology that are expanding into our world. They include, this is often based on, like the Modern Void can take a lot of different roles, depending on the setting, I should note. Like, we're playing in a modern setting, but the Modern Void could, if we were playing in a medieval setting, represent the work of folks like alchemists or steam engines. It doesn't always necessarily mean that you are playing with modern tech in the world. But a lot of the Modern Void is about putting pressure on traditions and also the limits of magic. Because just like magic has limits, technology has things that it can do that maybe magic can't. And magic has things that it can do and maybe technology can't. And there's also perhaps some space for these to cross over with each other. as it implies if someone accesses neo-magic or high-tech. So things it might want are growth and updates, the ruin of tradition, but also maybe alchemical refinement, even if alchemy is not an actual thing here. We could certainly use it as a metaphor for what technology wants. Evolution, transhuman body replacement, or the vexation of age. Oh man, now that I read that out, I do want vexation of age as a thing it wants. Because I do think it also plays into the idea that perhaps because we live in a rusting set of a ruined factory complex. I do like the idea that we're just dealing with the fact that it's all falling apart around us on a constant basis. And just to check, David, are you just turning off your video or are you having trouble connecting? Sorry, Dave. Okay, I think he might be having trouble connecting. So let's give him a minute here. And actually, we're hitting the we're hitting the 1 hour 18 mark here. So do folks want to, since Dave seems to be having a little bit of issue on his end, do people want to take a 7-minute break here and meet up at 25 minutes after? So I just wanted to. So I just figured I would call it a bit early, give you a sec to get back.
No worries, thank you.
So yeah, let me just jump over to the screen again. So yeah, we're gonna finish up here with the Modern Void. We had talked about vexation of age. Did any of the other ones stand out to folks as interesting elements desires they wanted this to have? I just realized I forgot to capitalize memes, but I think I'm fine with it being not capitalized.
It does seem more appropriate. I'm not tempted by memes, but it did just make me think of that whole witch talk thing, which was great. If a very weird thing on Twitter a little while back about people claiming that modern witches using TikTok or witch talks had cursed the moon. It was.
I remember that.
Anyway.
Mm-hmm.
For my part, I think evolution might be noteworthy because it provides this sense that change is not inherently a negative thing. It's a process of growth and positive change, which seems to stand kind of in not opposition, but as a contrast to the mindset that perhaps we as a group of witches and the village may be in, which is we need to preserve the way things are. We have to keep things good, and evolution might be kind of a counterpoint or contrast to that.
Other desire we want to go with the ruin of tradition?
I so want that.
Okay, cool.
If both of our settlements have tradition as a desire, then I mean, that kind of does paint the modern world as the bad guy in this story, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a story about apparently a haven of witches and a depressed mining town. I think that there's I think that if we weren't going to tell about how terrible the modern world is, I think we wouldn't know. We don't know what we're doing. But yeah, so that wraps up with looking through the setting elements. So that pulls us over to here, the first tab here, which is for our witches. So I know folks had already discussed about what they were interested in. I know David S., you're interested in the eldest, and Ryan, you're interested in the ascending, expressed interest in the ascending, and Dave, you expressed interest in a couple that want different playbooks. I kind of wanted to ask Ryan and David S., were you still interested in going with those, or has our setting talk kind of prompted other ideas? Because I don't feel like the need to, but yeah, I just wanted to check in.
Yeah, for my part, I'm still good.
Cool.
Me too.
Yeah, and Dave, did you have any thoughts about which you wanted to go with?
I think, given that we're going for a more modern setting, I think I'll probably go for the rose. Yeah, the unburned feels. I'm less comfortable playing the unburned in a modern setting. It's a bit too close to home, as it were.
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, yeah.
And like I said, I was 50-50 between the two anyway, so that's
Cool.
just kind of pushed me over the edge.
Okay. So yeah, and I think I mean, with all this talk we've been having about with the setting, I actually am interested in rolling and trying out Ferret's the Neophyte, just to have that other perspective here to contrast the Eldest. And I don't know what the Ascending's thing is going to be, but we shall see. And let me just go ahead and hide these so that they're not in our way. Hide. Cool. And I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for a bit while we work, and I'll maybe bring it back up once folks are more prepared. But okay. So I should note like a couple things to look at is that you'll have a set of like pick lists for various things for each character. Often it's a mix of stuff. Like they're often give things that, except I think for the rose just everybody likes. That's their thing. But like most of the other characters have both things that they uphold, things that give them our sources of strength. Like, for example, the Eldest has traditions to uphold and legacies. The Rose has what makes them beloved. The Chosen has what makes you chosen. The Ascending has what makes you chosen. The Neophyte has modern tools that they have. And the thing about each of these is that and these are largely about fictional positioning. They don't have hard mechanical effects. Yeah, they don't have hard mechanical effects. They're about like helping us flesh out who your character is and what role they perform in the story. And like I said, a lot of them also kind of come bundled up with difficulties or responsibilities that are also built into your character, except the Rose, which just everybody loves. But yeah. So yeah, as we kind of work through that, those are mostly what we're going to be looking at, giving our characters names, and drawing from the pick lists, and then we'll be introducing. Cool. So looks like folks are finished up with the base stuff. So let me pull back in the shared screen so people can see what we're talking about. So yeah, we've just finished up now with the character creation portion of Haven. We'll go around, I think, in character keeper order and actually introduce our characters. Actually, we'll go around in the order on the screen, because that's probably what we'll be using to determine a later part of character creation here. So yeah, I guess we'll start with you, Ryan, if you wanted to introduce your character to us.
Sure. So I will be playing Maria, and this is from the Ascending playbook. And so the flavor text for the Ascending reads, "Sometimes someone is born special. There is no nobility in Haven, but you're as close as it comes. The gods are within your reach, and they are trembling. The Ascending is a chosen witch. Their powers are divine, frightening, and unique." And so what I've got imagined for Maria, so I think the interesting things to note from what I've put into the playbook here, or what I've chosen from the playbook rather. So I shows that what makes her chosen is that she's the first of the new generation. So we kind of determined during character creation that we were trying to bring in these new witches to the Haven. And so I think Maria is going to be the first of this new generation. That's what makes her chosen. She's feared by the elders, who, I guess for reasons we'll find out, are not happy with this new generation being brought in. She's feared by the village, and so I imagine that her divine powers have manifested in a not nice way, because she's also feared by those who desire peace. I think we established during character creation that magic, once the end of the village, the fall of the village, and so I think that desire is working through her.
I'm curious, you say that she came to the Haven. So she wasn't born here? Does she have family outside of the Haven?
That's what I imagined, that she was actually from the village.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I thought maybe so we determined that the head witch had left or had disappeared. And I was thinking that maybe she actually brought Maria here, like just before she disappeared.
Okay.
And kind of like, inaugurated this new generation coming in and then disappeared.
Yeah, and just to also clarify for me, how old do you see Maria as?
I think mid-20s.
Okay.
Let's see. I think that's probably, in terms of what we've done so far, the most important stuff about Maria.
Yeah, and then also we should note, just up here at the top, it is a part of character. It is a part of the important part of the character to always keep in mind for the other players. Each character has a lure. When the other players fulfill your lure, they gain a token. So it's useful to keep in mind. So it's also saying we should bring up while we're introducing characters to get people an idea of what you're kind of aiming for as a player when you interact with them. That for the Ascending, it's when someone asks you to solve a problem nobody else can, they gain a token. But yeah, cool. Awesome. And actually the order is exactly the same, nearly exactly the same on in the Keeper as it is in the on the screen here, but David M.
Yeah, so I'm going to be playing Garland, who uses he or they pronouns. Not that fussed. He is. So yeah, I'll read out the little blurb. I'm just going to switch to my screens because it's a little easier. So yeah, everyone knows you and everyone loves you. How could they not? You're more beautiful and fantastical than anyone. People smile as you walk by, whether or not you deserve it. The rose is an enchanting witch. Their powers are indirect, charming, and seductive. So yeah, Garland is a young man. He has his arms are heavily tattooed with various flowers running up and down them. The tattoos do seem like they may shift from time to time. They may not be entirely fixed, as it were. And he just has one of those sort of smiles that just sort of charms and relaxes everyone around him. He's got that very much that sort of pun absolutely intended, that sort of very much flower child sort of air of calm and sort of chill around him. The three people that I've chosen who exalt him are the forest itself. So I think that there's definitely that kind of, again, that kind of
personification of nature.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's almost druidic type thing going on there. And his childhood best friend, who I think is probably someone back in the village, because again, I think that Garland grew up, or his family is from the village. I think he's maybe I'm torn as to whether he is technically. I think he's probably a little bit younger than Maria. I'm torn as to whether he's considered like part of the newest generation by dint of age, or whether he was maybe brought up in the Haven from a slightly younger age than Maria was. I'm not 100% sold on that yet, but that we can probably play about with that in time. And a reluctant rival who is probably someone in the Haven, I think, and I'll detail some of those in more detail shortly, I imagine. And yeah, my lure is that when someone brings me a gift, they gain a token.
Yeah, and our eldest, Helena.
Yeah, so Helena is the name. The flavor text is old as the hills and twice as dusty. Witches live a long time, and you are the oldest of the old. You are a driving force in the community and a keeper of old knowledge. The eldest is an ancient witch. Their powers are respected, traditional, and well-earned. So when we say ancient, I wanted to clarify, is it possible that she might have like
Yeah,
an
it's certainly
unnaturally
implied that
long
could be the
lifespan?
case. I mean, there's no mechanical benefit or penalty for being a naturally long-lived in this game. So she's as old as you want her to be, really. Yeah.
It's just flavor. Yeah. Sounds good. So in Helena's case, the way that I envision her backstory is that she probably was first initiated into this line of witchcraft back when it was probably colonial kind of witch times, probably 250 years ago, somewhere in that ballpark, when she was quite young. And she, with the current head of the coven, for lack of a better word, probably have become very close friends over the last couple of centuries. And she has sort of always looked up to this person. And now that she has recently disappeared, or I don't know what the story with them is, then Helena has kind of found herself in the role of leader for the first time and under very unexpected and undesirable circumstances. And so what do you do with that is kind of the fundamental question. As for other information, 2 traditions to uphold are blooded vows and the rite of evening glory. I have an idea in my head as to what these 2 might be, generally speaking. Then there are 1 or 2 legacies that she has left behind, and there's a nice contrast here. One is lasting peace, and this is because that she is kind of the one who is responsible for the coven continuing to exist throughout the course of the several centuries they've been around. She's kind of saved them a number of times, has prevented them from being subjected to burnings and violence and so forth. So she's saved them and has kept them alive. But the way in which she does it is the second of her 2 legacies, blood and fear. She has unfortunately resorted to violent and horrific means in the past as a way of preserving the witches. And it's not that she wants to go to that as kind of her go-to strategy, but it's what they've been kind of pressured into over the years. And so there's this kind of dichotomy going on with her. I think that covers it. If there's any questions, I can answer them,
Cool.
but I think that's kind of the intro.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and finally, I am playing our Neophyte, which is a playbook created again by Ferret of Faradime Games, which you can find over in the itch link below the video. Named Macintosh, although her online handle is Lilith999 because 666 was too obvious. Although I'm sure Helena will point out to me frequently if she ever found out about this handle. Not that I'm sure she knows how computers work. That like Lilith was not actually a person. That's just a made up story. Whatever, whatevs. That's my handle. Uh, uh, yeah. She is the neophyte. Is lotuses grow in mud. Good thing the world's been growing for generations before you. You plant a blossom before the rot takes you. The neophyte is a modern witch. Their powers are transgressing, fluctuating, and piercing. A lot of the neophyte, as a neophyte, a lot of my powers involve kind of not just relying both upon merging together the magical and technological world. I have a set of modern tools, a car that I think probably the missing elder was my grandmother. I think this is like I'm probably one of like outside of like Elena is the oldest family just in and of herself. My family is also one of the oldest families to rival Helena. um, and I'm just kind of chafing at the bit a bit. My parents do not know I have a car on the mainland that I have fixed up and used to take surreptitious trips into the village. I also have a library of grimoires that I've gathered up from around the web, and a high power computer, my smartphone. Uh, and I might also be in love with a fae. I mean, we might have met on local the local techie chat community, and because she is also a bit unusual for a fae into computers. And we might have started flirting, and then we met in person, and she turned out to be a fae, and maybe her family might be responsible for all those disappearances recently. It's complicated. But yeah, she as I said, she is the neophyte. She likes to go off into town on surreptitious trips to stock up on tech supplies. She's been managed to set up a computer system and a generator here on the on I think the our haven. That was something we have kind of been going without for a long time, and so there's like some need for her, even though maybe she's also met with some criticism by some of the elders in our community. Yeah, and my lure is when someone comes to you with tech problems, they gain a token. So yeah, those are our witches. So I wanted to come around again, and then maybe we'll go like around and then backwards, starting with and we'll kind of use it's actually completely the same, either the order in the videos or the order in the spreadsheet. But we have two questions that you'll get asked. One you'll ask to the left, and one you'll ask to the player to your right. So Ryan, I wanted to open with Ryan, and then maybe we'll come around to me, and then go backwards from me. So yeah, Ryan, did you have a question you wanted to ask either to myself, Macintosh, or Lilith 999, or do you want to ask a question of Garland?
So I think, well, I'm hoping this works out. So, David, you said that Garland's family's from the village?
Yeah, and I think he, like I said, I've not 100% decided, but I think he probably certainly spent like most of his youth in the village as well. I think he's a relatively new. In fact, no, I am actually going to go right and say I think he did. I think he did join the Haven after Maria. I think that makes it neater, with he being the sort of the first of the new generation.
Then that's okay. So then I think I'm going to ask Garland, how has our relationship changed since I've been chosen? Which I guess assumes we knew each other before coming to Haven.
Yeah. So I think that I think that Garland has that odd mix of like awe and fear, and also maybe a little bit of envy about Maria. I think like they knew each other back in the village.
Oh man, I'm just out of curiosity. Was there always some jealousy on Maria's part before she was chosen? Just because Garland is the rose, and so everybody wanted him.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think because Maria's always seen herself as the outsider.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, of course, Garland was friends with Maria because Garland's friends with everyone. And I think the ease with which Garland kind of the ease with which Garland deals with people, how much they like them. Yeah, I think that certainly has created some jealousy in Maria. And maybe she's not so jealous anymore now that she's the chosen.
Yeah, and definitely, I think that like I said, Garland is, like I said, is frightened, jealous of Maria's ability to sort of do magic, because kind of like I alluded to earlier, I think Garland's sort of magic is very like intuitive, and sometimes weird stuff happens around him, but he's not like one for doing like big magical workings and stuff. And I think that maybe Maria's sort of innate, or well, both innate and learned power is something that is has kind of changed that sort of relationship, maybe slightly more distant, but with a slightly different, maybe a change in status as well as change in like
Yeah, cool. Let's shift over then to Garland. Did you have a question you want to ask to your left or right?
I'm actually gonna straight while it's still on on our minds. I'm going to go straight back to Maria and say, how did I convince you to love me?
Huh. How did you convince me to love you? Or rather,
and I'm totally happy as whether that's like platonic or romantic or anything in between is fine.
Yeah, I'm trying. I mean, so obviously this happened before Haven. Let's see. I kind of like the idea that maybe there's something romantic there, and like even though there is this like undercurrent of like before there was jealousy on Maria's part, and now there's a little bit of jealousy on Garland's part.
Oh man, is that entirely what makes, like, now that he wants something you have, now you can want him?
I like, so, or maybe I wonder if like maybe it was that like maybe Maria was kind of had a crush on Garland before, and now is like, and maybe I don't know what you had in mind for Garland, but maybe now it's like, now that Maria has been elevated, it's like Garland kind of like feels like they can reciprocate. I don't know. I mean, I do. I also like this idea that like now that you're jealous of me, like I don't know, like there's a
it's that sort of like status shift that's like gone. That's sort of made it seem more like a thing that would at least be open from a Maria to pursue if she wanted to, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. So like it's not like a defined relationship or anything, but there's certainly something there. that has been affected by this kind of shift in positions.
Oh, I love this. Such a terrible, terrible basis for a relationship. Wonderful.
So, I mean, so yeah, so maybe it's not so much a question of how you convinced me to love you, but it's more like, it's like, how did this become like a possibility? Well, now that we've had this weird shift in who's got the upper hand, like now I can make it known that like I've had these feelings for you or something like that, and maybe now you're actually open to it because of this shift in position. Does that work for you, David?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I like it.
Cool.
Awesome. Helena.
All right, so for my 2 questions, who do I ask these to?
It's actually the order we decide upon is exactly in the character keeper. So, yeah.
Okay, so it's literally Garland and Macintosh. Very good. Let us do aiming towards Garland. I'll ask the question: how do I make you want to do better?
Yeah, I think this is maybe you're playing a little bit into sort of what was established with Maria, but I think that Garland sees obviously a figure of strength and power in Helena that he would like to be able to emulate to at least some extent, and I think definitely. To what extent he entirely agrees, we'll see him play, but I think he definitely sees the way that Helena is helping to hold the community together, and I think that's a big motivator for him. I think that's I think it's probably to narrow it down to the thing that he wants to do better is probably to learn how to use the power that he has over people, how to sort of channel the love and adoration that people have for him into like concrete goals.
Got it. That makes sense.
Cool. And then, yeah, I want to direct over. Yeah, I want to not pick that one for you. I want to pick this one instead. Do you know I look up to you, Helena?
No. I don't think so. My thinking is that
I'm probably always trying to impress you with like stuff I've made, and you're just like I
these are distractions and trappings
Yes.
you are presenting in front of me. Focus on the things that will bring you closer to this state of enlightened being that you will allow you to transcend the trappings of humanity. What is this technology? That's kind of probably
the laptop.
It's so cool. Just look at it, though. It has internet. That's probably where we would be. I think that my own biases and preconceptions and assumptions and judgments cloud my ability to see the potential that you bring, and that might be a character growth arc for myself as I kind of recognize that there is a little bit more to this Lilith 999 than meets the eye.
Oh no, I astutely avoid letting any of you know about me taking part, me talking about being a witch in forums.
Okay, so no one knows about that side of your life. Okay.
Probably some of the younger folks do. I definitely don't. I definitely try. Like I feel like they'd probably object, the older folks in our community.
But you're telling people that you're a witch? Are you mad?
Exactly.
That kind of thing. Okay.
But yeah. And then we said we were gonna wrap back around. Yeah. Maria. What great feat did we pull off outside Haven?
So, let's see. Macintosh makes excursions into the village with her car. And I mean, what else does Macintosh? I mean, so what does Macintosh do in the village when she's there? Why might Maria and Macintosh know each other?
Well, I mean, Macintosh, part of the reason she goes is to pick up supplies on the sly. Also to hang out with some of the towny folks, and her girlfriend, maybe, who is a fae. I mean, among other things, like, it's a great feat. Did we like, we know that there are monsters in the woods. Did we end up encountering something and actually like manage to like stop it or contain it or defeat it in some way?
I like that. Have we check the keeper here. So what did we determine was in the dark forest, or did we?
Not yet. We know that they're probably fae since they're in the area.
I mean, I'm wondering if, so although we did not choose it, we know that this world has witch hunters. Could they also be fae hunters?
Yeah, that makes sense. Did we help save some fae from like monster slayers?
I kind of like that. Yeah, that like we were off in the woods with your maybe girlfriend Faye, and
I'm sure that that's exactly how Maria, like, that was exactly like the kind of dismissive hand gesture that Maria made in character.
like, yeah, we were not being discreet at all, and yeah, attracted some sort of monster hunter. Maybe we don't even know who they were.
Cool.
But I think, yeah, we managed to chase them off. Yeah. I'm sure we'll figure out more about that as we play. If that works for you.
Yeah, that works for me. Awesome. Okay. And then, yeah, coming back to Helena.
Oh, do I have my questions too?
Yeah, well, I'm going to be wrapping back around. So we're going to me and then wrapping back the other way.
Never mind.
So then this question is directed toward Macintosh, and it is, what part did I have in your childhood?
So I like the idea that, I mean, I guess it depends how much you want to, like, I like the idea that like, considering that we've established that since that we were talking about the missing elder of the community is my grandparent. I mean, were you kind of like, I kind of feel like, were you, since he was busy all the time, were you the one that actually like made the effort of like raising the next generation? Or is that something at all you would take part in?
I think I would. How long has he been missing for?
I don't think he's been missing recently, but I think that like he was always like kind of busy with like dealing with like problems within the community and things like that. That you were like more of like an actual parental figure to me than like either of my parents were.
Got it. So perhaps there was a certain nurturing quality that I brought in. I'm good with that, and I think that makes it so that despite the fact that I think you're basically distracted by shiny things, I don't.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Fair, yeah. I don't think that I resent you for that. I have too much affection for you from seeing you grow, and I have too much patience to allow that to color my view of you too much. I think at the end of the day, I still am very affectionate toward you, even if I don't express it.
Yeah, okay, that works for me. Cool. And then we come back to Garland.
Yeah, so I couldn't resist the combination of these two questions. Helena, why do you look down on those who love me?
I think it is because I think they love you for the wrong reasons. I think that they love you because of superficial characteristics that they find appealing, whether it is your physical attractiveness or your sense of humor or something to that effect. I think that it's because they don't love you for the potential and the power and the strength and the insight and wisdom that you inwardly hold. They only see the exterior, and that's a very shallow mindset to take. And I can tolerate a lot, but I can't tolerate shallowness.
Nice.
Do Helena and Maria not get along?
I mean, you did pick that the elders fear you.
I know. And Helena also wants peace, and those who want peace should fear me. So yeah.
Although to be fair, Helena's piece is a kind of very bloody piece.
True.
Yeah, and then that brings us finally back to Maria.
So I have a question for Macintosh. Do you think I deserve my power? I think we've established your mother was the one that chose me to bring me into Haven.
I think it's a complicated question for Macintosh. I think that, like, probably she'd say no, but, like, probably it's more about, like, do you deserve to have more of my mother's and father's attention than me? Is probably the question she's actually answering.
And I kind of feel like maybe, I mean, and tell me what you think about this, but that maybe Macintosh is open about this, and that's maybe why they hang out, because Maria kind of respects the fact that Macintosh is like open about this fact and not fawning over her like other people might be.
I mean, your powers are nice, but I mean they're not a computer.
Nice.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. So that brings us to the end of like the character creation portion. We're coming up on 23 minutes after. So I think we have a little time to play out a couple opening scenes, but first I wanted to call for a quick break. So are people cool with meeting up at the half-hour mark? And then we'll maybe have time for a couple scenes and call it a night. Awesome. See you in a few, everyone. Hey there, everyone. So, like most of opening up with these kinds of jamful games, they're often a good point to begin with if you're really stuck for somewhere to open, or if you don't have an idea for a scene. I'll ask for people in a sec. Is to take a look at some of the answers to the questions. Sometimes actually playing out that answer is a good point to start. Looking at some of the conflicts and desires of the town we've set up, exploring some place of the world in a bit more detail. Sometimes you just want to see another scene with another character. But since we're now coming together for some actual play, I wanted to point out for you and the folks following some of the stuff to pay attention to on the character sheet. Besides the lure, you also have a set of a line for tokens underneath that. That line is where you will track the tokens, which are the main economy of most belonging outside belonging games. Some games use other methods, but generally you're gathering the currency to spend on making moves. So that brings us to this. In any game of belonging outside belonging, you have a set of moves that reflect how your character can interact with the world. Some of them are very open, such as taking action, leaving yourself vulnerable. That is always something you can do. Others are more specific, like starting a revolution, wield your legacy like a blade, or demonstrate unimaginable power. Generally, there are 3 different kinds of moves. You have regular moves, which are moves you can always make because they often don't, in themselves, offer a means of solving a problem within the fiction. They are things like taking action but leaving yourselves vulnerable, give advice as a proverb or saying, or have credible witnesses. None of those completely resolve an issue, but they offer you a stepping stone to doing something. Weak moves, on the other hand, are your main way of gaining tokens in the game. Often when you take a weak move, you're putting yourself in a position of vulnerability or leaving yourself exposed or in harm's way in some way, such as plugging in and tuning out of reality, allowing yourself to get frightened or overwhelmed, or telling someone that you simply can't help them. Every time you make a weak move in the fiction, you gain a token. Often, though, it's going to give an opening for whoever is playing the setting elements to do something nasty and to kind of flesh that out a bit. Strong moves, on the other hand, are ways of affecting the fiction in a way that strongly favors your character. They're where your character is doing what they are best at and making a positive impact, usually on the story in some way. Such as the neophyte starting a revolution, the elders use ancient power, dark and strange, or the roses steal someone's heart. They're things that simply allow you to do things in the fiction, often at very little cost to yourself. So jumping into play here, I have a thought for a scene, but I'm wondering if anyone else has an idea for something they really want to see, because I'm fine like seating. Oh, okay. My scene was actually going to involve Maria, so that's exactly a good moment to bring up here. Either, like, I can certainly brainstorm some scenes, but do either Helena or Garland have a thought for a scene that they wanted to see? Or Maria, now that you're back.
It does not need to be the first scene, but if a goal that Helena has is to bring new people into the fold and to kind of begin to infiltrate the village in some way, then she would probably want to send out the most likable and customer-facing person. I can't. That was the word that came to mind.
Yeah, you're the customer service rep, Garland.
Right. I was gonna say she would probably say, Garland, I have a mission for you.
Yeah.
Or
So if you let's open on this then. So where have you decided to approach Garland about this?
I think that both out of tradition and because I must, of course, assert my authority, I think that I would actually say, Garland, you must come meet me. So you come to me, I'm not going to come to you. And I imagine that I have...
Is this you enforcing some outdated rules? Because that is a weak move you have.
Oh, I suppose it might be. Yeah, I guess it's outdated. We can go with that. So is there a place that I track tokens somewhere on the
Yes,
sheet?
there is in the lot that rows on top. There is a space for you to track any tokens.
Got it, got it. So even though it complicates things or is perhaps an unnecessary kind of outdated part of decorum, I would think that the scene would begin with me having requested Garland to meet with me in my chamber, which is this small kind of office and the run-down factory that's been cleared out and has holes in the walls through which sunlight and moonlight stream through, and I have these kind of nested blankets and burnt out candles and so forth kind of scattered about the place. And I think that I would send for Garland and request that they come meet with me because I have a matter that I must attend to with them.
Is Garland on time, or is this rather annoying request to climb up this to the other end of the haven just to have a meeting? Like, they sent off a messenger to send you a message to come to the other end of Haven where the messenger was from.
Yeah, so no, I think he's not like deliberately late. Though yeah, I think he's is 100% one of those people who's like, oh, it's 5 minutes till I need to be somewhere. I'll leave now, regardless of when or where that thing is. So I think he's probably a few minutes late. If we had a Starbucks here in the rusted mining town, he would almost certainly be a few minutes late with a coffee. But yeah.
Very good. I am sort of in this like ceremonial kneeling position on one side of the room when you enter, and upon seeing
And out of
this...
curiosity, who is it that you sent to meet to get Garland?
That's a good question. It could either be I think it could be either Macintosh, or if
I have another idea for a scene, so I don't think I'll be in this one.
Okay. Is it possible that I just sent out perhaps a familiar, like a crow or something like that, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, you can just have a crow familiar. What's his name?
Oh, goodness. I wanted to say Edgar because of the Raven, but that's a bit on the nose.
I mean, it could be. Maybe you have a sense of humor.
We'll go with that because I can't think of anything better.
Either that, or it's it's been your familiar for years, and it's like I called him Edgar before that was a thing.
Yeah, I got it before. I had this crow since it was before it was cool to name ravens Edgar.
Right. It's just a horrible turn of bad luck that now everyone calls their crows Edgar.
Yes, it is like, mistress, I did send for him earlier, but I'm quite apologize for him taking so long. It is no fault of myself, I assure you.
And that's Edgar saying that.
Yes.
Yes, very well, Edgar. Please go and mind to your own matters, and I'll kind of usher him out.
Yes, and he gives you like a little wing salute and flies out.
Garland, please, if you would, come, kneel, sit, let us talk for a moment.
Of course, Mistress Helena. He'll kind of kneel down opposite her. What can I do for you?
Garland, you're aware of our thinning numbers, I am sure.
Of course. It's... I mean, I suppose I've not been here the longest by any stretch, but no, I know that we have been dwindling in number.
I have thought for many months now how to address this, especially given the encroachment of this hamlet that lies through the forest and upon our haven. And I have come to the conclusion that it is time that we bring new blood into our fold. Now, you can go ahead.
Of course. I suppose I can head out and see if I can interest anyone in joining us. I mean, we have a lot to offer.
We do, and you do as well, Garland. You possess a great charm and a great gift, and I have no doubt that you will be able to find someone who, in your best, wisest mind, would be a most excellent addition to our ranks. Maria, she is adequate, but not sufficient. None of us are individually. We need more. And you're the one with the gift to find them. And that is the task that I charge you with.
Thank you, Mistress Helena. Yes, I'll see to it. I mean, in all honesty, I think the village is hardly doing any better than we are, but I'm sure I can find some recruits there.
I am sure that you will find recruits there, Garland. Do you understand what you are tasked with?
Of course, to find those amongst the village who I think would aid us in our works and to bring them here to be initiated.
Very well. That is all.
Yes, mistress, I will see to it.
And that's all I've got on my end for the scene.
Yeah, no, that's cool for me.
That was a quick one.
Yeah, and before jumping over to I want to get back a little bit because I do want to see a little bit more of perhaps before the session ends of Garland doing his thing. But Maria, what are you okay with me framing us into a scene together? Because I kind of do like the idea of us coming off of that feat. Because I think I'm going to just open immediately with a weak move. And we open on the car that we were in together. We have been fleeing from this encounter with the hunters. And we have just crashed straight on into we have been driving down this dirt path off the main road. And we have just crashed straight into a tree. And I have broken something important. And I think that I decided to give her the name Vincitoxicum rosicum, but she just goes by Rosie, who is Mac's girlfriend. I think that she's probably actually been injured because we did rescue her from these hunters. And we were trying to get her away into safety when all this happened. And I'm wondering if somebody, because this does feel like a good point to pick it up, if somebody could pick up perhaps the setting element of the dark forest, because the setting element here is for when you're being hunted or, because it is one of the things is to hunt. And it might be in this case that we could even treat the hunters as part of the dark forest, even if they're not necessarily of the woods. But yeah, I just as a heads up to folks, I think that Macintosh is clutching at the wheels, going shit. Is everyone okay? And I think probably Rosie is kind of a little bit in pain and not entirely cognizant. But how has Maria handled this crash?
So what kind of car does?
I think it's a really old clunker that Mac has fixed up, and actually made run really well up until this like crashing it into a tree.
So is it so old that it wouldn't have like working airbags?
No, it does not have airbags at all.
Yeah.
I think that we're going along a country road, like a dirt road, so we probably weren't going that fast. But so it's probably not like you didn't go flying out the window or something like that.
No, but I'm imagining that like we hit maybe a tree or something like hard enough that like Maria has slammed her head like into the dashboard, and is kind of pulling up from that. What the fuck, Mac? Where did you learn to drive?
Oh, well, YouTube.
Not surprised. Okay. Rosie, how you doing?
If somebody wants to pick up something and play Rosie, feel free as well. She might be like maybe the world's heart, or even also part of the forest.
And Rosie is
she's a fae. She's the
fae
kind of girlfriend of Mac.
Got it. I can pick her up if other David, you would like to take hunters or something to that effect, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking of taking up the Dark Forest as kind of the setting for this. If you want to, grab.
World's Heart, maybe.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense.
I will go ahead and do that. So Maria just asked Rosie how she's doing.
Yeah.
Cat. Ow. I think I don't think anything's broken. I think I'm fine. Ow.
Yeah, it's probably a good thing this clunker's not made out of iron, huh, Mac? Way to go there. Nice job.
This was all improvised, okay? I did not plan any of this. And who were those guys, Maria? I have never. I mean, I know that there are stories, and that's why we all live in the Haven. But who were they?
I don't know, but they certainly know who Rosie is.
And I think we see like the where you've rammed into the tree, the sap is like flowing out of the break in the tree, but it's like flowing out a lot more than it should, and it's sort of pooling around the base of it in an odd and slightly unpleasant looking way, forming this like pool of sticky liquid.
Awesome. Hey, Mac, is this thing gonna start?
I think that she tries turning the key a couple times, and she's like, if we had a couple hours, I could, but I don't think we're getting out of this, getting away in this. And can you walk, Rosie? I can help if you want. You know, you can rest your on my shoulder, and she kind of is trying to. She's panicked, but she's also blushing a little bit.
Rosie replies, could you maybe carry me or support me or something like that?
Yeah. And she kind of goes around to the back of the car and kind of really tries gently and kind of awkwardly to like pick up Rosie. Rosie's a fae, so I'm sure like fae are in general, I am always imagined as being pretty light to pick up. They're light loads.
Yeah, and I think as you're sort of moving around the car, you see like this sap from this tree starting to form like a tendril running up the side of the car and like creeping in through the window. Still moving slowly at the moment, though.
So, which window is that crawling into, David?
It's probably through the back window. I think it's just sort of like easing through the through like the gap between the glass and the rubber bit.
Yeah, I think I kind of shout at you as I kind of notice it. Maria, We've got tentacles. Do you think you could do something about that? And I think I actually am triggering when you go to someone to solve a problem that nobody else can.
That assumes I can solve it. All right. So,
I assume you can. You're pretty powerful, right? I'm sure you'll be fine.
So Maria is, I think, since she's been quote unquote chosen, like although she likes this turn of events of no longer being the outsider, she still likes to play like this is such a burden, and so she like rolls her eyes and huffs and like gets out of the car, slams the door, and goes back to see exactly what she's working with this.
Are you hesitating at a crucial moment?
Maybe.
Because it does sound like, oh, we're being attacked by tentacles, but let me be a surly teen first.
Uh-huh. So I'm gonna huff and puff to the back of the car and take a look at this sap that's pooling from this tree.
And I imagine because you're just taking this time, it is growing quickly at this point over the car.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it's sort of as well as like the extrusions like starting to creep over the car. It's got a couple of other like tendrils of sap oozing up and just sort of like waving around in the air like the antennae on a snail.
I kind of want to do this. I mean, so I think like having just gained that token for being a petulant child and hesitating at a crucial moment, I'm going to spin that token immediately and put an end to something permanently, and like throw my hands down like towards the ground and just call down this crack of lightning to like split the tree in half and totally just bake all of that sap so it hardens and can no longer move.
Yeah, I think it resonates through the sap, and it's just like left in this odd like sculpture of amber in the middle of the forest.
Rosie
When did you get
screams-
lightning, Maria?
I was going to say Rosie screams in surprise and hides their face in Macintosh's neck.
And I'm going to ignore the frightened Faye and the question from Mac and just turn and say, "Can we go now?"
Yeah, and I think that because I do want to give a little bit of extra time here now to see a little bit of Garland before I go, I think this is a good moment to like close this opening scene for us two. And yeah, where do we find Garland? Like, are they like? Because I kind of wanted to give Garland a chance to see them doing something with their life other than getting ordered or bossed around by someone. But maybe that is their life.
Yeah, sure thing. So yeah, I think that Garland is in it's probably like the diner, and I'm imagining a very like Twin Peaks style double R diner type thing going on. And he's sort of sat in a booth with a couple of other probably vague teen type kids in there, and he's chatting to them about like I'm trying to think of a good. I think actually they've like all got they've all obviously got like cups of coffee, and they're obviously all like inspecting like the grounds in the bottom of the coffee, and he's sort of doing some sort of like reading on them.
Yeah, and let me just remind myself of who the people that loved you are. Who's your reluctant rival again? I forget.
So I think my reluctant rival is Desdemona. She is another witch.
Cool.
Probably of an age with like Garland and Maria and Mac.
Bible of.
And I think my childhood friend is Carter. He could be here. That was not my intention necessarily, but bring him
yeah,
in.
no, I do like the idea of you running into Desdemona here, and I think I'm gonna just as a heads up pick up the setting element, the Witches of Haven. Garland, you did not show up for cleaning duty today, and you left me to clean up after that whole pyromancy debacle, the one you caused. As Desdemona is like kind of giving you eyes as she says this across the table.
Oh. Look, Mona, I'm sorry about that whole thing. You know, I'm trying to get the
Desdemona. My friends call me Mona.
Fine, Desdemona. You. I mean, yeah, it's not fair that you got stuck with that. I know it's not, but I was called in by Helena for a job that she wanted for me, like, you know, and I mean, it's not fair, like, you know, people playing favorites and all that, but she just knew that I was better at this than you would be, and you were better, like, doing that whole cleaning up the classroom thing. So,
are you showing someone up?
yeah.
She just like looks at you, and like it just comes out as a growl. I'm happy for you, Garland, that you're being entrusted with this responsibility. And she kind of gives you this grin. I would really hate for you to see I would really hate to see you, I don't know, fuck this up. It would really reflect poorly on to the elders, on all of us, to see given your history of causing messes.
Yeah, look, I'm gonna do my best. I'm gonna show them that I can do some stuff, right? And like Desdemona, your you know that you're better at the actual magical side of things than me. It's and you know, this is the bit of it I'm good at, I guess, and maybe I can learn more from you. And if there's anything you need from me, I'm always here.
She kind of sighs begrudgingly. Nope, I'm sorry. I see what. Fine. I guess I see what you're saying. She kind of looks it over you. The towns, have you been back to the town since you've been away? Since you came here, Garland?
Yeah, I think he comes back with some regularity, but not like all the time. But I don't think this is his first time back in town.
Look, I don't know what Helena's doing, but sending a witch on their own in town, it's dangerous. And I may not like you, she says, lying. But I don't want to see you get hurt.
Thanks, thanks, Desdemona. It means a lot that you've got my back.
Is that an offer to come with? She says, arcing her eyebrow.
Of course, of course.
Cool. And then she turns over to Cal, one of the other people, sipping coffee. Cal, you're on cleaning duty, and she sweeps out of the room with you.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so I think that's a good moment to end the scene there. We got to see a bit more of Garland. Cool, yeah. Thanks all. That wraps us up, I think, for the evening. So let me end the broadcast here.